My time spent with Armello on the Nintendo Switch has brought back so many happy memories of playing some of the great tabletop board games of recent years. Whilst Armello is officially an original digital board game, developer League of Geeks have managed to include lots of clever mechanics found in physical board games and interweave them into one deep and involving game. The first thing that will strike you when playing Armello is how beautiful everything looks. The characters in the game are large forest-dwelling animals such as bears and foxes. These are all superbly drawn and animated and really help convey their individual character. Each has some lovely incidental music as well whilst their turn is in progress. The fantasy land in which they inhabit is similarly impressive and hides the hexes the game is played on with forests, villages and the like. Moving around these hexes costs one of your 3 action points per turn, or 2 points if you move into a mountain hex, but that offers a defensive boost if you have a battle whilst in there. Most other hexes offer some sort of interaction with your character. The castle at the centre is the key to the game. It's here where Armello is ruled by the powerful King Lion, but he has contracted the rot, a disease that sends the afflicted into madness and eventual death. Within 10 days the rot will leave the kingdom without a ruler, as each turn takes 1 heart of the king's starting 10 health. Hearing news of this is when you and 3 others from the animal clans step in and try to claim the kingdom of Armello for yourself. After selecting your character from the original 6 available with the base game and equipping them with various runes and rings, it's off to war. A day in Armello consists of 2 phases, a day phase and a night phase. During each day phase you will first collect any gold owned to you from the controlled villages, refill a hand of cards and your action points will be reset. You will generally always have a quest to complete on the board. You are offered 3 quests at the start of the game to pick from, and then on completion of each quest you pick the next and so on. These quests have to be completed by visiting a randomly selected tile on the board. This clever mechanic ensures all the pieces keep moving around and don't just congregate in one area. The quests are largely optional, but rewards for completing them are usually too good to pass up, as you look to gain equipment and prestige on your way to defeating the king at the end of the game. As you travel around the board you will encounter other characters, either the other players, the King's Guard, or dark forces known as the Bane. Combat against any of these types is handled in the same way, using a number of dice based on your attacking stat, plus any other boosts available from cards or the surrounding environment. You can also burn any of your cards to lock in certain symbols for the fight ahead, which is a good way of getting rid of cards you don't particularly want. The symbols you roll are tallied, and whilst there are a few to look out for on your dice, you basically want to roll more swords than the opponent has rolled shields, as this will inflict some damage on them. You cannot technically die in Armello. Once your health hits 0 you are returned to your base on the board and your prestige is reduced. Prestige is an important stat for you to nurse during the game, as the creature with the highest prestige stat is known to have the ear of the king at the start of every dawn and can choose one of 2 new laws presented by the king. These will either put a new rule into the game for that turn or do something as simple as stripping characters of some gold. This really helps keep things interesting, as you never know what's coming next, and getting to be the king's ear is something worth pursuing. Prestige is also one of the 4 victory conditions, and more often than not my games of Armello have ended in prestige victory. This particular way of winning is when the king perishes of the rot and whoever has the highest prestige statistic in the land assumes the mantle of the new king. There are also 3 other ways to win. First, by collecting 4 spirit stones which randomly appear on the board and taking them to cure the king. By accumulating more rot than the king and then defeating him basically in a rot battle. And the other way is to breach the castle and take the king on head to head. If you survive the battle then the kingdom is yours. Taking on the king is a tough task, as you have to battle your way past the King's Guard and then breach the castle itself, which involves a test of one of your stats. You'll also need as much health as you can in the final battle against the king. It's usually better to wait till the near of the end of the 10 turns when the king has lost most of his own health. This does help the game's play out in full and gives the players plenty of freedom to spend some quality adventuring time, collecting equipment and building up ready for the final confrontation. If a game goes the full 10 turns versus the AI, you're looking at around 35 to 40 minutes a game. but once you start to add in online players, this can increase the play time by, I reckon, at least 15-20 minutes per player, so bear that in mind when starting an online session. Thankfully, offline games are saved each turn, so you can pick them up again when you have some spare time. Overall, Armello is a beautifully presented and cleverly constructed strategy game with so much more going on than I can explain here. It has enough randomisation during each game to keep you on your toes, but also gives you the strategic tools to overcome most things that are thrown at you. It rarely feels like anything happens in the game that's unfair. Even though combat is determined through random dice rolls, you can mitigate a lot of this in your favour by having the right equipment, strategic placement on the board, or burning cards to lock in the symbols that you need. It can be overwhelming in the early games, but there's an excellent tutorial to get you up to speed, and an easy in-game reference card can be accessed via the pause screen whenever you get stuck. I can't recommend Armello enough. There are some small niggles, some of the animations can be a bit choppy from time to time, the load times are a little bit long, and the text can be a bit small to read at times, especially in handheld. But if you're a fan of board games, then this is a no-brainer. Also, if you just like beautiful looking strategy games, then this is absolutely worth your time owning on the Switch.